Right now, tonight, you are going to lock a door, maybe pull a blanket over your shoulders, and fall asleep without a single thought about being eaten. You will do this without thinking twice, the way you breathe without thinking twice. But for more than 99% of human history, sleep was the single most dangerous thing a person did all day. You were blind, paralyzed, defenseless, lying still for 8 hours while leopards, hyenas, and saber-toothed cats hunted in the dark all around you. So how did our ancestors survive something that should have gotten every one of them killed? The answer is stranger than you think, and it is going to change the way you look at your own bedroom tonight. And here's the thing, nobody tells you. We assume early humans slept in fear, huddled and terrified, barely surviving the night. But the real story is that sleep became one of the most engineered, socially coordinated technologies our species ever invented, long before we had writing, before we had agriculture, before we even had language as we know it today. Understanding how ancient humans solved the problem of sleeping safely will change how you think about your mattress, your bedroom door, and honestly, your own nightly anxiety. To understand how this happened, you have to imagine the African savanna roughly 2 million years ago. Just after sunset, the air cools fast and carries the smell of dust, dry grass, and something sharper underneath. The scent of predators moving closer as the light fails. You can hear hyenas calling to each other across the open ground, a sound that travels for miles. Somewhere out past the tree line, a leopard is already watching. There is no door, no wall, nothing but bodies and firelight standing between your ancestors and the dark. In 2012, archaeologist Francesco Berna at Boston University published evidence from Wonderwerk Cave in South Africa showing controlled fire use dating back roughly 1 million years. That finding proved early humans were not just stumbling onto wildfires, they were keeping flames alive on purpose. Here's why that matters. Fire was not for cooking first, it was for staying alive through the night. This sounds impossible, but scientists have actually documented how dramatically fire reshaped human sleep itself. Anthropologist Polly Wisner at the University of Utah spent years recording nighttime conversations among the Juhoansi Sand people in 2014. And she found something remarkable. Once the sun went down and the fire was lit, conversation shifted entirely away from daytime gossip and conflict toward storytelling, myth, and social bonding. The fire was already inside them. It had rewired not just where they slept, but what their minds did once the sun disappeared. Group sleep around a central fire was not a comfort. It was a calculated defense system, with bodies arranged in concentric rings and the most vulnerable kept closest to the flame. That single sentence should stop you for a second, because it means the campfire was never just about warmth. But here's where it gets extraordinary. In 2015, sleep researcher Jerome Siegel at UCLA studied 3 modern hunter-gatherer groups with no electricity, the Hadza of Tanzania, the San of Namibia, and the Tiasimanin of Bolivia, and discovered something that overturned decades of assumptions. These groups slept an average of just under 6.5 hours a night. Less sleep than most modern Westerners get, and almost none of them napped regularly. Let that sink in. We have spent years blaming modern life for our sleep deprivation, assuming our ancestors slumbered peacefully for 9 or 10 hours under the stars. The data says the opposite, but this raises a question that's been debated for decades among sleep scientists. If ancient humans were sleeping less and in far more dangerous conditions, how did the human brain not simply collapse from exhaustion? You are lying on packed earth just inside the ring of firelight, and you can feel the cold radiating up through your spine from the ground beneath you. You hear the low crackle of the fire and underneath it, the distant cough of something moving through the brush. Your body stays half-tensed even in sleep, because someone nearby is always awake, watching, listening, ready to call out. You smell smoke, sweat, and the dry sweetness of the grass bedding pressed beneath you. This is what early humans did, not occasionally, every single day, for hundreds of thousands of years. In 1999, paleoanthropologist Lee Berger documented sleeping platforms and rock shelter use in southern Africa that showed deliberate, repeated site selection, places chosen specifically for elevation, visibility, and a single defensible entrance. By 60,000 years ago, sites like Sibudu Cave in South Africa show layered bedding made from sedge and rushes, deliberately replaced and even burned to kill parasites and insects, a discovery published by archaeologist Lynn Wadley at the University of the Witwatersrand in 2011. Here's the part most documentaries skip entirely. This was not primitive guesswork. This was infrastructure. Choosing elevated, defensible terrain, building layered insect-repelling bedding, assigning rotating night watch. This is essentially a Stone Age version of a guarded perimeter and a maintained barracks, across completely disconnected human populations. In Africa, in Indonesia, in the Levant, archaeologists find the same pattern again and again, fire at the center, bodies in rings, someone always watching. That convergence is not coincidence. It is the same problem producing the same solution everywhere. Humans existed. And that closes the loop because the original question was never really about fear. It was about how a soft, slow, weaponless animal turned its most vulnerable hours into its most protected ones. Today, you sleep behind a locked door, often completely alone, in a room sealed off from every other living person in your home. The irony is that despite all our security systems and reinforced walls, many people sleep worse than hunter-gatherers did beside an open fire, anxious, isolated, staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m, with no one nearby and no fire crackling to anchor the mind. We traded the communal fire for the nightlight and the shared watch for the locked door. And most of us never even knew it was gone. Sleep used to be something a group did together, a coordinated act of mutual trust. Now it is something most of us do entirely alone, which may be part of why it feels so fragile. In 2014, archaeologists working at Sibudu Cave uncovered something almost unbearably specific, a sleeping mat layer dated to roughly 73,000 years ago built from river rushes and sedge, with the ash of a repellent plant called Cryptocarya woodii mixed directly into the bedding to drive away mosquitoes. One specific person on one specific night, nearly 73,000 years ago, gathered leaves, lit a small fire, and arranged that bedding by hand so the people sleeping on it would not be bitten through the night. Think about that for a second. That is not abstract prehistory. That is a parent, or a partner, or a friend, making someone else's night just slightly safer 73,000 years before either of you were born. So tonight, when you pull your blanket up and the room goes dark, remember that the door you lock and the soft mattress beneath you are the final version of an idea that started with hands gathering rushes by firelight on the edge of a dangerous continent. The distance between that person at Sibudu Cave and you is not really 60 or 70,000 years. It is one unbroken chain of people trying to keep the people they loved safe enough to close their eyes. They didn't know your name, but now you do.